Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Conversations with Anasa. We're still going to be that this morning. So happy to see all of you. Yes, let's start with meditation. So we're going to do the 4-phase meditation again, using the Om sound, which actually is it's 4 sounds. So it's Ah at the base of the spine in the pelvis, and then Oo or O in the heart, and then like when you were a kid and played with wax paper on a comb, that sound that kind of vibrates your third eye. And then the 4th is out the top of the head and really to the energy center. If we put our fingers together and made a halo around our head, this energy center is where the energy goes when it goes up out the top of the head. So there are the 4 sounds, and the last one is silent. And they are analogous to the 4 stages of wake, sleep, deep sleep, and that which is beyond. So everything sort of fits together in this group of 4, and we'll do each thing 4 times. We'll do each thing 9 times. So we'll do it out loud 9 times. Then we will whisper it 9 times. And when you whisper, make sure that you're still doing the 3 sounds and the 4th. And then the third 9 times, we will just watch the energy move as we say the sound internally. And then the 4th time, we just breathe with the movement and watch our breath and the moving of the energy. Okay, so we'll start with 9 times singing the Om sound. I'll do it once just to show you, and then we'll do 9 times together. So sit comfortably with your spine as straight as you can. Close your eyes, bring your attention all the way inside so that there's no part of you that's outside of your own attention. Om. 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 Now whispering. Now say the sounds internally only as you watch the energy rise up. Now just watch the rising and falling of the energy. As you finish, gently open your eyes just a sliver, but hold your attention inside still. So you let a little bit of light in, but no attention out. Gradually open your eyes further and further, holding your attention in. And gently allow yourself to take in your environment through your eyes, but still having all your attention inside your beingness. Welcome to a different perspective. We're happy to take your questions. Good morning. So happy to be with you. And now as you look at other people, you'll be able to see where their attention is, because you'll know what it feels like inside, middle, and outside. Will give you a whole new perspective about where people hold their attention in their being. As you begin to reside deeper and deeper in your own beingness. Because of course, whenever you notice your attention has moved outside, you can gently pull it back. And again, see from a more open perspective. And it's also worth trying bringing your attention into your heart for major parts of your day, pulling it out of your head and down into your heart, and seeing how your experience of the world changes when your attention is in your heart, in the center of your chest instead of your head. And then you might try centering your attention just below your belly button and see how that feels to have your attention there as you go through your day. You can always bring yourself to whatever part of yourself you want to be looking at the world from, and begin to see the world in many different ways, depending on where your energy is inside yourself. How may we serve further? Okay, Wesley. No? I think they just disappeared. It's okay, we have the same thing happen a lot. Internet's not always straightforward, especially if you have strong energy. It can sometimes get tangled. Questions, anybody? Well, there was somebody who wrote me questions and I forgot them. Oh, Paul, please talk.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm okay. Seems like when you bring your attention into your body, and it seems like the act of relaxation, in that act is where you become aware of the tension that you're holding, either physiological or psychological. And it's interesting to observe that. And I'm wondering what your thoughts on that are.
Well, for different people at different times, the experience is different. The question is what you do with what you observe inside yourself. And sometimes, and we're not talking about you, Paul, but sometimes when you look inside, you will see what looks a little bit like an iceberg in one of these areas, or it will feel like some kind of energetic density, or you won't be able to feel. It'll be a kind of numbness. Whenever any of those three things happen, that means that that particular area of beingness in you requires some attention. And our attention brings with it the warmth to begin to dissolve these patterns. And the truth is that we don't need to look for information in these patterns, because if there's anything we need to know about it, we won't be able to avoid it. It will tell us. We can be assured of that. Most of the time, we don't need to know. And, you know, it will just be things like for Rebecca, it will be past life experiences like, you know, having been killed as a witch or things like that. You don't need to know any, you don't need to relive those. They're not worthwhile. And, you know, we could all intuit that about ourselves anyway, pretty easily, that if we had past lives, we were probably persecuted for our awareness of our inner being, because fortunately, we live in a time now where inner awareness is not persecuted. And it's not exactly supported 100% by our environment, but it's not disputed either. So we live in a relatively safe period of time, which is quite wonderful for inner exploration. And there are those who actually welcome our knowledge and information and want to participate deeper. So what we do is we use our attention to generate some heat, activity, and motion in an area that might be numb or blocked or frozen. Those are kind of the words. Our inner tends to become paralyzed by the negative experience that happened to us as children when we got our circuits fried from being more open than the circumstance could handle. And so we experienced a kind of external rejection that caused us to reject ourselves. And so we have to go inside and embrace that self-rejection and love ourselves back into openness, because as adults, we know that cultivating openness is what is going to take us where we want to go inside ourselves, because all any of us are lacking is the self-awareness to be in love itself, in love with love itself. And this isn't a an unconscious state where we get carried away by an emotion that's out of control. It is instead a deeply harmonious state of happiness and contentment with who and what we are and the life we have been given as we attempt to live it from an ever deeper place inside ourselves. It has nothing to do with any other. And there is nobody and no thing except our own awareness that's keeping us from being in love with love itself. And in our dedication to experiencing that love more and more deeply within ourselves, we pay more and more attention to the quality of our inner perspective and less attention to blaming others for our discomfort. Paul, we hope that answered your question.
A bit. So
Please come back at us.
when you get inside, when you get into that state where you're able to feel the tensions, call whatever it is, it seems like you have to be able to note it, witness it, and then allow it. Don't judge it. And then in that allowing, it seems like the love will come spontaneously. And so it almost seems, in your answer, you almost put love before allow. And that's kind of where I come up against the wall, because it's like, okay, I'm trying to love, but I can't love unless I allow that tension and witness that tension. And
You're
accept.
absolutely right. So the question is this, the experience is this that Paul is relating, is that when you go inside and notice an uncomfortable pattern, it's important to allow that pattern to be uncomfortable. And then you self-treat that pattern with love itself, in the words of Ho'oponopono. Or if you know another effective technique, that's also fine. But you allow yourself to experience the discomfort. And in allowing that, you are welcoming it with acceptance. And then you need the practice, and Ho'oponopono is certainly an effective one, to bring your awareness through the disconnection that is created by the disharmony. So you say the Ho'oponopono to your deepest self, never to anything outside yourself, only to your deepest self as you bring yourself into the harmony of love itself. And bring this pattern into some kind of personal acceptance and resolution. And our experience is that you have to do this more than once with most of these patterns, because most of these patterns have persisted in those of us who are over 50 for decades. So we're carrying a lot of heaviness. And when we allow it to come forward and we say Ho'oponopono till it resolves, we've made, a dent in the iceberg. So we shouldn't be surprised or feel like we've failed when that same pattern appears again, because it's not that we did insufficient work. It's that things release in the same way that they build up. They build up in layers of repeated experience that we identify as the same. And so we have this dense pattern that we get rid of, that we bring to harmony in layers. And so it's a spiraling down through a very deep iceberg of intense experience that caused us to be in this disharmony. And so there are all kinds of, the major pitfalls in it are feeling like we failed when we see the same pattern twice. Not true. We may see the same pattern 100 times before it actually completely resolves. And then there's a space that you can't imagine before you experience it. There's a spaciousness that happens internally that allows you great expansion that wasn't previously possible. And so when you look inside and you go, oh, this again, that just means you're making progress. That is not a sign of failure. We are so conditioned in this world to view every experience that we have in terms of success and failure that we often in our lives decide to quit while we're behind because we feel like what we're doing isn't working. When in truth, what we're doing is so close to working that our own resistance has multiplied to make it imperative that we push through. So if we understand that what is happening when a pattern repeats is that we are getting closer and closer to actually bringing it into harmony rather than further and further, even though it may feel like it's even more dense than when we first ran into it, because certainly it is, because it's older and deeper and more disharmonious as we go deeply into these patterns. So don't stop just because something comes back that you thought you already did. That's actually a sign of progress. And understand that all the parts of us that don't want to grow will be in rebellion, and that's okay, because we want to bring it all into harmony. And what we're running into when we run into this apparent rebellion is actually, it's the lineage before us, the lineages that we carry that didn't have the opportunity to do any work. And so they decided no work was possible. And so they're quite skeptical as we go deeper and deeper, and these lineage patterns of, you know, our parents, their parents, their parents, their parents, and we keep going back and back and back and back. These people we've never even met, but they are very resistant to knowing their inner. And so we just go right on past it. We just keep going deeper and deeper with the understanding that every pattern inside ourselves that we bring to harmony, it's having a great impact. Because even though these people no longer occupy our immediate environment, except in our resonance through our beingness, these patterns, once changed in us, have changed the world. We just have to understand that. And that is the true value of our work. And every time we sit down and work a little bit deeper and expand a little bit more, we have changed the entire multiverse just with our tiny effort. And we have no idea the power that that has throughout the layers of being. But when we harmonize ourselves with love itself, we are doing the most powerful thing we can possibly do to influence the world. We know just in our own experience that if we walk in the grocery store and on our way in, we notice a mom with 2 kids and 3 grocery bags trying to get out the door, and we just open the door and smile and help the whole situation out the door, there's gratitude immediately. There is flow between you and this group of people. It just happens. And it changes. It changes you and it changes them. What was a frustrating situation for them is suddenly alleviated. And in that alleviation, there's just an exchange of a smile. That mother just had a different experience for 5 seconds than the frustration of doing all that at once. You have no idea the ramifications for the rest of that person's day. So the tiniest things that we do that pull our lives up and someone else's, we have no idea. But when we're not crabby in these encounters and we actually do good just from the bottoms of our hearts opening, you know, we see these 2 tiny beings and we kind of wave at them and uplift them. You know, for sure 5 minutes ago, they were begging for some cookies or whatever to go into the grocery cart. I mean, we know these stories, we see them all the time. If we can participate in an easy way and make things lighter for everybody, what have we just done? We've made the world a better place. Did we get closer to answering your question, Paul?
Thank you.
Oh, good. How may we serve further? Yes.
I do the Om meditation on my own quicker than we did this morning. When I did it this morning with you, the meaning was more profound. Was that due to my pace, to doing it with you, to both, or to something else? What do you recommend regarding the pace of Om?
So there are about 3 questions in there. Does it make a difference to sit with us? The energy's coming through this body and all the people on this call to do Om together. Well, the difference it makes is the difference you experienced. When there is a collective holding an energy and acting in a unified way to hold and expand that energy, it has collective power. And that collective power empowers every person who's participating. So even if you were, say, riding on a bus and unable to participate in this call, if you looked at the time and you knew we were doing it, you would be part of it. And you could access that field. Not only that, that field is not limited by time and space. So anytime you sit down to do the Om meditation, you can reference this time and space. It still exists. It's not gone. At the same time, there is only now. But in that now, you can expand it to contain the experience of the collective as you do the Om. And you can take that with you forever. so that every time you sit down or you're sitting in a coffee shop and you just want to do it silently inside yourself, you can reference the collective energy. You can bring that experience back because you continue to have access to it because you've experienced it. We hope this makes sense because it's really important. That's how we build on our practice. So where you've gone today, we hope is beyond where you've ever gone before. And that's your starting point tomorrow. This is called evolution. And this is how we help each other. The collective is of value when it's going in the same direction we are. When it's going in the opposite direction, we turn it off. The television, Facebook, most multimedia. But we can use it as entertainment some of the time, as long as we understand that it's entertainment and we don't get pulled into it so that we become it. People are infinitely entertaining. And we can become infinitely entertaining to ourselves. And it's nice when that happens, because then there's humility. And also we don't take ourselves so seriously. We can get serious adult syndrome going pretty easily. How may we serve further? Did we answer that question, Brenda? We're so happy to be with all of you. How can we build collective energy without a collective? And who knows, maybe one of these days we'll get to meet in person. Of course, in all of our life experience, none of us ever expected that there would be a pandemic and we would be on the computer doing classes with Zoom. What an interesting turn of events in life. This energy exists for our benefit. So take it in deeply and allow it to participate in your transformation. So we're coming to the meaning of an oracle as a human being that's able to radiate source energy. We all have that potential. Every single human being has that potential. Just as we all have the potential to be telepathic. And you know, when we're in relationship with somebody for a long time, we do become telepathic with them. We can complete their sentences. We know that energy really well. And there's joy in doing that. Well, we're all capable of doing that with each other. And the more we become source energy, the more access we have. Although one realizes pretty quickly that being able to experience another person's thoughts is not that much fun. I mean, most of us are meditating because we want to get away from our own. So there's no need to fear. Anyone who can do that really isn't interested. How may we serve further? Wally, hi.
Hi. I have a question that's not formed at all. But just this morning, I came across this idea that this is in the context of trusting life. And I have this, so trusting life in the context of there is enough, there will be enough. And I have this, I know it's a fundamental delusion of mine that there's never enough, there will never be enough for me. And this produces a kind of stinginess because I'm holding it, and also, but the idea that then this sort of electrified me is that if you if you don't have a clear idea of what would be enough, then you can never have it. And I have a lot of, I'm afraid I can't get myself to go to answer that question for myself.
So there are a lot of ways to go to answer this question. It's really a question about abundance, the fundamental nature of abundance and how we access it. And then there's a different question, which is how do we cultivate trust with our source, trust in our source, which is both related and not related to abundance. Trust that will be enough. Now, we kind of trust there's going to be enough air. You know, we trust that the sun's going to come up. But it's hard to trust when you know you're going to die. So we're not infinite. So there's kind of where the first rub comes in. Well, if I'm going to die, how can I trust source at all for anything? My life is finite. Source is not. Source is infinite. Why have you created me to be finite? So there's that. You know, we really have to come nose to nose with the fact that we die. Because it's there that we feel abandoned by God. So if we can get harmony with that experience, then we've got the whole thing, right? So what we have to understand is that we are source. Source never abandons us. We are that. The part of us that is source doesn't die. And we know if we've ever known anybody that we love who has passed on, we know that love doesn't die. And somehow we begin to put that together as lived through experience, that we are love and that love doesn't die. And that if we just hold to the love, no matter what happens, then our life has value in every moment because we are holding to the love, which is the source, which is the part that doesn't die. So once we have that understanding, then there's something to stand on. We're not constantly running away because, you know, there's a hole under our feet that we're going to die. But when we understand that we just merge with love, that the love we've been cultivating our entire lives just expands, and we're that when we die, we become totally that which we have been cultivating. So when every day we feel into that experience and we expand, we're practicing for the final expansion. And we're no longer feeling like we're standing over a hole that's one day going to give way and will disappear. Because we are that love, and the more we cultivate it, the more we become it. The more we speak Ho'oponopono to our source, the more we become the love at our source. And then abundance is living from the awareness of that love and celebrating every moment of it. And abundance, living from abundance. It means that we trust that what we need will appear in the time we need it. And we also understand that we came in with a blueprint, that the only way we can really be in harmony with it is to do our inner work and become more and more love every day. Then that effort itself refines our alignment to our blueprint. And the more we are in alignment, the more we attract that which will serve our highest. And so we're constantly cultivating that alignment. And in that alignment, the flow of abundance participates with us. And we begin to experience signs of that flow that we'll call synchronicity. For example, you'll have a beautiful, beautiful conversation with somebody, and then you walk out to your car, and in the middle of the hood, there is the most beautiful flower you have ever seen that has just landed there from a tree, and you can't even see how it got there. But this is like a validation of what you're feeling in your heart in the moment, and it just happens out of nowhere. And so you get this synchronous expansion of your own heart, the experience of the flower, and the communication you just had with the other person. These things happen as we become more and more in alignment. The outer world begins to participate with us to show us the harmony of that alignment. You notice that you're feeling really, really good, and you look out the window and there are 50 birds on the bird feeder. You know, this is harmony. This is abundance. And then you know you're in that harmony when something disharmonious happens, and you hold to the harmony anyway. Because you don't exactly understand what's happening, but you know that holding to that love has become the most important thing to you. So when you suddenly get a letter from the IRS that says you owe $28,000, you don't flush yourself down the toilet in terms of your inner peace. And there becomes a kind of giving to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and holding to the love no matter what, because that's what's real. Now, we each have a different blueprint. So what works for my blueprint is not necessarily going to work for you, your blueprint, in exactly the same way. And this is what we discover as we move forward in our own lives and attempt to understand where the parameters of our own blueprint are. And what is it we really do have control over, and what is it we really don't? And we can use our breath a lot in this, but it's a good thing we don't have control over our breath totally. If we had responsibility for our breath, none of us would be alive very long. We'd forget to breathe pretty quickly. Fortunately, our autonomic nervous system does not forget. And none of us would want control over that. There are so many different feedback loops in our body that we have begun to map them all. We still know less about our body than we still haven't hit the depths of what's to be known about what powers a human being. And our disease management system is getting further and further away from any idea or definition of what true health in a human being is. It's getting further and further away from that every day. Because without a definition of health, how can you ever expect to get there? Health is not the absence of disease. That's not a definition. How may we serve further? Did that answer your question, Wally? Maybe not.
The fundamental idea that it's all based on alignment really speaks to, yeah, the foundation of my fear.
I think the critical point is knowing that we are source and that source is love and that love doesn't die. That's sort of the fundamental equation underlying every bit of inner work that we do. We are that which doesn't die. And every breath into that awareness makes it more and more real. And that's really what we're breathing when we do the Om meditation. We are connecting to that source, which is beyond. And that's what's real, the unspoken. And we think this meditation is one of the quickest, easiest ways to have that experience. that we found. So we're going to say this just because we're experiencing it. When a person of the magnitude of Thich Nhat Hanh dies, what happens is that that contained energy that has been held and cultivated in alignment for so long expands. It expands to touch everything that is. That's its nature, is to bring benefit. And that body could no longer contain that energy. And so now the container has broken and the energy is completely free and available to all. And it's a tremendous benefit to all living beings in this moment. We have been so blessed by this person's work. There is no human being who's not being changed by it in this moment, whether they know it or not. The work that we do is forever. It impacts our lineage. It impacts every life our life touches. It's really important. We can say with some clarity, there's nothing that any of us do that's more important than this alignment. And ultimately, it's about a peace and contentment that begins to bubble up into the experience of joy. And it's not exactly the joy of a little kid that is just so happy to be able to move that they run in circles. But it's sort of like that. It just happens all by itself. And we each have an element that brings us joy. You know, for Rebecca, it's water. Like just being completely immersed in water, especially if it's a little bit warm. That's just perfect experience. We know that's not true for everybody, but you know, some people it's wind. Some people it's connection to the earth. But there is within us the capacity to just feel really good for no reason at all. That's alignment. We still have time for another question. Yes. Kath,
Hi,
hi, so happy to see you.
happy to be here. Two things. I wanted to thank you so much for sharing this Om meditation with us. I've been doing it every day, and it's just, as you said today, it's just so efficient in getting that alignment in place. And it's so easy to do any time of the day. It doesn't just have to be on the cushion. I mean, I weave into my day multiple times when I call it just take a breath. And it, even if I'm in a stress cycle, it releases that stress cycle because it shifts it. And it's like it's almost like the more often I do it. I had a teacher who talked about short time many times. And I find that by doing it that way, instead of these sort of just on the cushion and not off the cushion, it becomes more and more part of all the time. But adding this into it as well has almost supercharged it. I mean, it's just been lovely. So I wanted to thank you so much for offering that to us. And
So
then
welcome.
thank you. And I've been an active part of the Plum Village community for several years now in a Sangha here. And so Tay's passing has been transition has been a very, very powerful thing for me. I feel like he's been in almost some form of active transition for several years now. We would get multiple notices saying, it seems like he's about to let go, and, then he would stay. And so there's such a gentle shift in some ways with him finally and I think he has everything to do with it at his stage of enlightenment. I think there's a lot of choice involved. And clearly he felt the need to do it now. And I'm just so grateful for all that he's given us and continues to give us, because it's his, as you said, his gift has been pervasive and is now even more pervasive, and in a really good way. So I was laughing because I was just getting ready to to put in the chat, could you share your thoughts on this? And you just, so I love the mind meld. Thank you.
So, is that telepathic?
Yeah, right. I was laughing.
Yeah,
Like, and here it is.
yeah. So, and it's great cause for celebration.
Right.
The breaking of the vessel and the release of this enormous flood of love.
The other thing I was just going to say with it is he does so many teachings on this, and I facilitated at Sangha this week, actually, on Wednesday. And we were doing his 5 mindfulness trainings, because we do that once a month. We review those. And I usually speak a little bit to one of them. And I was speaking to the second one, which is true happiness, which is really a lot about generosity. But there was a quote I found of his where he was speaking about, in a meditation, he was talking about waves. And I've always been really drawn to the wave ocean connection of how we are a wave and we go back into the water and we're an appearance and it shifts. And what really got to me the most, what really was a new way of seeing it, was that there that process, there is no increasing and no decreasing. It's not changing the overall energy field as we arise and as we, shift our form. That it's all because it's all source. And so we're different forms at different times, but we're all still source. And that was just added to my added understanding with that whole wave. And I'm with you. I'm very happy submersed in water. That's a very happy thing.
So, yeah, we were just going to say, you have the same nakshatra, Revati, prominent in your chart that Rebecca does. Revati is the last nakshatra. Nakshatras are houses of the moon in astrology. And in Vedic astrology, you have the regular zodiac, which is the fixed stars in the sky. And then these fixed stars each participate in houses of the moon. And the moon moves through each portion of the zodiac in approximately 20, 24, 29-hour day, somewhere in that neighborhood. And as the moon goes through each of these houses, it's as though it goes through different neighborhoods, and different neighborhoods have different characteristics to them. So each phase of the moon, and there are 27 of them, each one of them has a whole personality profile, we could say. And so Revati, the 27th one, is in Pisces. And Pisces is the ocean. It's a water sign, and it's the ocean. There are 3 water signs: Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. And Cancer is more like rivers, it's flowing water. And Scorpio is more like lakes, it's fixed water, it's more contained, but bigger than rivers. And then Pisces is the ocean. And then Revati, which is this small 13-degree and 20-minute section of Pisces, is actually the one lone fish jumps out of the ocean, is separate, and then returns to the ocean of consciousness. So that's Revati, both aware of the ocean of consciousness and the separateness that returns to the ocean of consciousness. So this, this informs every thought of every day in people who are born with something important in that particular house of the moon. So we speak the same language.
Not a surprise.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So it's about time for meditation. And I hope that wasn't too much astrology, but it's a lot of fun. There are 26 other houses of the moon we could talk about on different days. There's a lot to it, but it's so fascinating. And we will say it's as close as you can get to a glimpse of at least something that's related to a blueprint. So let's go back to meditation. And this time we'll let you do your own Om sound in your way, whatever works for you. And we're just going to broadcast. So happy to be with you. And we'll begin our transmission phase. You're welcome to participate with eyes open or closed. And we're just so delighted to share. Thank you so much for participating. So much love to you all. What joy. Till next week.